Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into a place that's darker than a dungeon, smellier than a barn, and loaded with more regret than a medieval stew. Welcome to the brothel, where romance takes its last breath, and hygiene clearly never checked in. Before we dive too deep, take a quick moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy drifting into history that's mildly disturbing, yet strangely fascinating. Drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. All right, lights down, blankets up. So, have you ever wondered what life was really like inside a medieval brothel? Was it all velvet cushions, flowing wine, and endless laughter? Or was it more like drafty rooms, suspicious-looking soup, and customers who hadn't seen a bath in 10 years? How did the workers actually survive in a place with more drama than a soap opera, stricter rules than a monastery, and hygiene standards that make your old college roommate look sparkling clean? What did people eat? What did they wear? Did anyone even sleep? Or was it basically a medieval version of round-the-clock customer service, with the added risk of getting arrested? Let's find out. Congratulations. You've just woken up in the year 1352, right in the middle of the medieval red light district. You're cold, you're confused, you're still slightly hungover from ale that probably had more fungus than hops, and ahead of you is a night that will make you grateful for every boring Tuesday you've ever had. You stumble through a narrow alleyway that reeks of last year's cabbage, and you're greeted by a flickering sign above a door that creaks louder than your knees. Step inside, and you're immediately wrapped in an air so thick with smoke, cheap perfume, and nervous energy that you can practically taste it. Everyone inside seems to go by the same name. Marjorie, welcome to your new home for the night. And don't mind the rats. They're part of the rental agreement. Let's set the scene. You're freezing. You're tired. Somewhere around the third puddle, you stepped in. You lost feeling in your feet. Behind you, the alley buzzes with the very specific sounds of medieval nightlife. The clatter of a dropped tankard, the distant yelling of someone bartering over onions, and, of course, the splat of a chamber pot being emptied right out into the street. If you're thinking this is just a regular inn with a bit of extra atmosphere, think again. A medieval brothel is part boarding house, part tavern, part fever dream, and nothing like anything your history teacher would have dared to mention. The moment you cross the threshold, a wall of smells slams into you. Stale beer, smoky tallow candles, damp wool, and something that might be lavender, but is really just trying to cover up centuries of questionable stains and forgotten regrets. Perfume here isn't worn, it's weaponized. If you feel a draft, it's not from the windows. It's from the collective sigh of everyone realizing there's no turning back now. The first thing your eyes land on is the decor. Picture something between an abandoned attic and a very creative fire hazard. The furniture is mismatched, most of it left behind by customers who couldn't pay their tab or who simply vanished midwinter. There's a wobbly table barely holding a candle that looks like it's on its last breath. Three-legged stools are occupied by people with two working legs, but very questionable morals, and hanging on the wall, a faded tapestry that's either showing a biblical miracle or someone dropping a pie. Honestly, hard to tell. Your welcome committee arrives in the form of a stern-faced figure in a bonnet, whose main job seems to be glaring at newcomers. They don't bother asking your name. Nobody here cares about names. But they do care about one thing. Are you paying up front? You nod, trying your best to look like someone who actually knows how money works. Coins change hands, counted, recounted, and then disappear straight into a pocket. Receipts don't exist yet. Your only proof of payment, the faint hope that the madam has a good memory. Now, let's take a look at the other guests. At the bar, a traveling merchant is snoring face down, having managed to lose both his money and his shoes. In the corner, two farmhands are whispering loudly enough for everyone to hear, working up the courage to approach Marjorie. Though which Marjorie, no one really knows. And then there's the minor noble, dressed in an ill-fitting doublet, trying desperately to blend in. Spoiler, he doesn't. He's also the only one whose boots haven't been chewed on by rats. Eventually, you're shown to your accommodation. And by accommodation, I mean a drafty little room separated from the next suite by nothing more than a threadbare curtain and the sheer willpower of the building's residents. The mattress is basically a sack stuffed with straw, lumpy, uneven, and covered with stains you hope are wine, but deep down, you know they're older than the 100 Years' War. A candle, barely taller than your thumb, flickers hopelessly on the floor, threatening to snuff itself out just out of pity. But the real stars of this room, your unexpected roommates. Two house cats of no discernible color, one mouse braver than most nights, and an ancient, bad-tempered rooster who definitely looks like he's here against his will. Every sound in this place is magnified. The scrape of bowls, the jingle of coins, a muffled debate about whether last week's bread still counts as food. From the other side of your thin curtain, you can hear laughter, sobbing, and what sounds suspiciously like medieval customer service going very, very wrong. Just as you're getting used to it, the madam herself arrives. She sizes you up with the weary eyes of someone who's seen far too many guests attempt to pay with buttons. She offers you a cup of wine, thick, suspiciously murky, and tasting like it might have been strained through an old sock. You drink it anyway. Your only alternative is well water, and nobody recommends well water. As night falls and the brothel fully wakes up, you realize something. Your modern problems, slow Wi-Fi, no oat milk at the cafe, are nothing compared to discovering you're not alone in your room. You pull the scratchy blanket over your head, listen to the distant chaos of medieval nightlife, and silently thank your ancestors for inventing walls, locks, and soap. And so, your first night in a medieval brothel begins. If you survive until morning, you might even get breakfast. That is, if the rooster decides to let you sleep at all. Welcome to history's worst Airbnb. Forget kings, forget queens. The real ruler here is the madam. She runs this house with an iron ladle, a razor-sharp tongue, and an uncanny ability to sense unpaid tabs 3 rooms away. She'll size you up in seconds, deciding if you're a customer, a headache, or worse, competition. Now, let's talk power. Sure, kings may rule kingdoms, but the madam, she rules something far more terrifying. A building stuffed with desperate workers, demanding customers, and livestock that refuse to pay rent. She's got more authority than the local constable, more charm than the traveling friar, and a memory for debts that would make any accountant jealous. Every coin, every broken promise, every sock left under a mattress since last Michaelmas. She remembers it all. You'll spot her instantly. She's the only person in the room not rushing. She glides through the chaos with the calm confidence of someone who fears absolutely nothing. Not fire, not famine, not even the city's annual clean up the streets day. Her outfit looks like someone stitched together 3 centuries of fashion trends into one intimidating patchwork of velvet, wool, and pure determination. Her hair, twisted up so tight, not a single strand dares escape, as if she's daring the lice to even try. With one raised eyebrow, she can silence an entire brawl, and with a single shout, she can summon every worker, cleaner, and yes, even the chickens, to her side. Her weapon of choice? Not a sword, not a dagger, but the deadliest tool in the house, the sharpest wooden spoon in the world. Ideal for breaking up fights, poking suspicious stew, or rapping the knuckles of anyone foolish enough to forget their payment. The madam's day starts before sunrise and never truly ends. She guards her ledger under lock and key, though honestly, her memory is safer than any lock in town. She balances bookings, tracks supplies, haggles prices, and somehow manages to keep peace in a building that's one insult away from collapse. The Pope himself would envy her negotiation skills. Once, someone tried to cheat her with a counterfeit coin. Legend says she chased him across 3 streets, collected what she was owed, tacked on interest, and somehow left with a free goose. She knows every secret in the district. If you want gossip, she already knows the ending. If you want credit, she'll laugh in your face, then offer you a bowl of questionable soup instead. Her spy network, a mix of nosy neighbors and lazy cats who report back on every visitor, every missing towel, every coin that didn't quite make it into her pocket. As for the city bailiff, she calls him by his childhood nickname, and when he shows up for inspections, she serves him tea and casually reminds him of that one time he lost a boot in her cellar. The madam isn't just a boss. She's a therapist, a referee, and a medieval alarm system all rolled into one. She mediates arguments over who gets the good pillow, patches up heartbreaks with a mix of tough love and stale bread, and can spot a liar before he even opens his mouth. New workers get a once-over that says, "I've seen worse, but not by much." Try to outsmart her, and you'll be hauling slop in the yard for a week, or worse, assigned goose duty. Every so often, some overconfident customer tries to flirt his way into a free drink or a discount. The madam shuts him down with a story so personal, so humiliating, that even the boldest tightwad suddenly remembers he left the oven on at home. Rumor has it, she once convinced a local lord to pay double, just for the privilege of not being mentioned by name at dinner. And yet, beneath that iron shell, there's a strange loyalty in the house. The workers might roll their eyes at her rules, but when the guards come pounding at the door, or when a fight threatens to spill into the street, it's the madam they look to. She's the only one who can coax the oven back to life, calm a furious client, and send rats running with nothing more than a single clap. To outsiders, she may look cold, harsh, maybe even cruel, but to her people, she's the last line of defense between them and the chaos of the world. She gives out loans, with interest, of course, advice, whether you asked for it or not, and on rare occasions, even a hug, strictly after hours, and never in public. In the end, she's the glue holding everything together. Without the madam, the roof would collapse, the stew would scorch, and half the guests would be curled up in the alley, competing with goats for sleeping space. So, if you ever stumble into a medieval brothel, remember the golden rules. Be polite, pay up front, and never underestimate a woman armed with a ledger, a spoon, and a list of grudges longer than the Magna Carta. Before you can even get comfortable, you're handed a list of house rules, longer than a church sermon. No fighting, no free samples, no credit, and for the love of all that's holy, no singing after midnight. Soap, by the way, is rationed, and usually only slightly used. Let's take a closer look at these legendary rules, because surviving a medieval brothel isn't just about stamina, it's about obedience. The rules are scrawled on a scrap of parchment, written in blotchy ink that looks like it's been through as much as the building itself. Some notes are clearly recent, probably added after last night's unfortunate incident with the goose. Others are so ancient that even the madam isn't sure what they mean anymore. No juggling torches in the main room. Someone definitely learned that the hard way. Rule number 1, no fighting inside. This isn't a tavern, and it's not an underground brawl pit. If you feel the need to duel, kindly step outside, preferably out of sight of the town guard. Broken chairs cost money, and the madam has no time to add furniture repair to her already brutal schedule. Here, bruised egos are to be dealt with behind the privy or through the noble exchange of passive-aggressive stares. Next rule, no free samples. This might be the medieval world's version of customer service, but it's not a charity. Anyone caught handing out freebies is immediately reassigned to laundry duty. Translation: boiling stained bed sheets in a cauldron big enough to drown your dignity in. Strangely enough, nobody asks for seconds. Rule 3, absolutely no credit, ever. Forget I'll pay tomorrow. Forget I left my purse at home. Unless you're royalty, and even then maybe, your night begins and ends with cold, hard cash on the table. Any attempt to barter, pawn off trinkets, or trade your second-best chicken will be met with a look so disappointed it could sour fresh milk. And then there's the midnight music band. Once upon a time, an overly ambitious apprentice bard serenaded the entire block with his ballad of 12 turnips. For the first 5 minutes, catchy. After that, pure torture. The punishment for late-night singing now includes mopping floors, wrangling livestock, and, worst of all, a temporary ban on soup. Now, the soap. The single most precious, hotly contested, and heartbreakingly rare item in the entire house. The rule is simple. Thou shalt not steal the soap. This isn't just practical. It's practically sacred. The house soap is, at best, a sad little nub of mystery origin, passed from guest to guest. It carries at least 5 different scents, none of which are particularly pleasant. And here's the catch. If you take it, everyone will know, because you'll be the only one who smells vaguely of 𝙃𝙧 instead of goat. Soap use is strictly supervised. Workers get a ceremonial hand wash before dinner and an actual bath every other saint's day. Customers, soap is a privilege, not a right. If you're caught sneaking in an extra scrub, prepare yourself for the madam's wrath and a lengthy lecture on communal hygiene. And considering the average medieval person bathed about once a month, the very existence of house soap counts as borderline luxury. No livestock upstairs. That's another favorite rule, added after a particularly unforgettable night involving a chicken, 2 goats, and a bucket of ale. Let's just say lessons were learned, reputations were ruined, and the stains still haunting the carpet to this day. If your animal can't pay, it sleeps outside, period. Of course, not all the rules are written down. Some are unspoken, but you'll figure them out fast. Never ask what's actually in the stew. Don't comment on someone's real name, especially if they insist it's Marjorie. And if the rooster wanders in, just let him be. He's earned tenure. These rules aren't decoration. They're the only thing holding the chaos together. Without them, every night would unravel into spilled ale, shattered furniture, and at least one small fire. The madam knows this. That's why she enforces order with the grim determination of a hungover schoolmaster. Workers, guests, goats. Everyone falls in line, and if they don't, they wish they had. So, as you settle into your corner, clutching your precious sliver of soap and practicing your best, silent hum, remember, in the medieval brothel, obedience isn't just fun, it's survival. Because nothing ends a night faster than the madam discovering you tried to pocket the soap. You thought medieval brothels were all silk and mystery. Think again. Most workers here wear threadbare linen, patched up wool, and the occasional hand-me-down tunic that's seen more action than a knight's shield. Accessories, decorative fleas, and a faint, lingering aura of regret. Forget what you've seen in steamy paintings or big-budget TV dramas. In a real medieval brothel, luxury was an optical illusion, like those velvet curtains that turn out to be sheep's wool dyed a heroic shade of burgundy. The dress code wasn't about glamour. It was about two things: what's warm and what hasn't fallen apart yet. If you're picturing sultry robes and a feathered mask, adjust your expectations. Think more along the lines of layered potato sack, with bonus holes. The fabric of choice, linen, or at least what used to be linen. After years of hard labor, desperate patching, and overenthusiastic washing, it transforms into something best described as historically durable. The standard undertunic comes in a washed-out beige, although after years of stains and mystery patterns, the color is less beige and more question mark. And that delicate lace trim, yeah, that's just frayed edges. Call it medieval distressed chic. Over the linen, you'll usually find a wool overdress, patched, repatched, and patched again, until it resembles a map of pure disappointment. Sometimes, a faded apron is added for functionality. If you're really lucky, you might even borrow a shawl. Scratchy? Yes, but perfect for hiding the fact that your sleeves don't match. Clothes are swapped almost as often as stories, so every piece has a history, and probably more secrets than the city bailiff. Shoes, on the other hand, are a whole different tragedy. The brothel keeps a small collection of battered pairs passed around like communal bread. Some have holes, some have mismatched laces, and all of them share the same faint, damp mystery that can only be described as ambiguous. Many workers simply go barefoot, which feels authentically medieval, right up until you step on something sharp and immediately regret living in a century without shoes, pavement, or tetanus shots. And now, the true stars of the brothel dress code, lice. They're not just pests. They're practically part of the uniform. In a world where bathing is quarterly and a comb counts as luxury jewelry, fleas and lice thrive in hems, collars, and places we'll politely call personal crevices. Around here, scratching isn't a nuisance. It's background music, woven into the rhythm of coins clinking and the occasional thud of someone tumbling down the stairs. Jewelry, meanwhile, is minimalist and practical. Maybe a ribbon scrap, a shard of colored glass on a string, or a lucky pin. Equally useful for protection and poking overly enthusiastic customers. Real gold. Only if someone accidentally leaves it behind. And when that happens, it immediately vanishes into the madam's communal improvement fund, which has somehow improved nothing but her suspiciously nice hat collection. Hairstyles are purely functional. Hair yanked back in a knot, stuffed under a cap, or plaited just to keep it out of the soup. As for lice treatments, vinegar rinses, smoke baths, or hopeful prayers. The brothel does keep a communal brush, but everyone agrees it's cursed. The less tangible accessory, though, is the air of regret. It lingers in every tunic, especially when you realize you've worn the same one as 3 coworkers and at least 2 customers. If you're dreaming of a velvet corset, forget it. Velvet was so expensive in the Middle Ages, it could get you robbed, arrested, or both. Here, patchwork is safer, if not stylish. But if you really want to flaunt your status, there's only one way: clean socks, the rarest luxury of all. If you own a pair, guard them with your life. They will be borrowed, bartered, or outright stolen before the week is out. In a world without fabric softener, the joy of warm, non-damp socks is basically the medieval equivalent of heaven. So next time you sigh at laundry day, remember the brothel's fashion mantra: less lace, more lice, and a general vibe best described as apocalypse chic. If you want to survive the night, wear whatever you can, patch it with pride, and don't get too attached, because the only thing more permanent than stains here are the stories. Now, meet the customers, merchants, soldiers, weary travelers, and far too many members of the clergy who, by some miracle, all claim they're only here to save souls. Every visitor brings a unique odor, questionable bargaining skills, and a medieval misunderstanding of personal boundaries. So let's take a slow, slightly horrified stroll through tonight's lineup. First up, the merchants. They swagger in with purses jangling and fingernails that are marginally cleaner than everyone else's, always just passing through on urgent business. Yet somehow they know every local ale by name and price, their bargaining style. Merchants are the first to strut in. They'll haggle for 20 minutes over the price of a room, then tip with a foreign coin no one can actually spend. Conversation with them is easy because it's always about themselves, their wares, their travels. And that one time, they almost struck a deal with a duke who tragically died of natural causes. Translation: plague, or suspicious stew. Next come the soldiers, gruff, loud, and so caked in mud you could plant vegetables on their boots. They travel in packs, convinced they're charming, when really they smell like victory. In the most literal, nose-watering sense, table manners, let's call them experimental. Romance, usually a debate over who gets the least lumpy corner of the straw mattress. Still, if you want news about the latest war, or which town just burned to the ground, these are your guys. Just don't expect them to remember your name, or their own, by morning. Then we've got the travelers, hollow-eyed, staggering in at odd hours, clutching nothing but a walking stick, a sack of regrets, and a blanket with the texture of dried fish. They're just grateful for a roof, a hot bowl of pottage, and one night without being rained on by the sky or by someone's chamber pot. Complaints? None. They're too exhausted to care if the stew has extra protein or if the mattress bites back. These folks will sleep through anything, even medieval karaoke night. And of course, the clergy. So many clergy. Officially, they're here to check on the spiritual well-being of the house. In reality, everyone knows what's happening. They'll preach about sin, repentance, and generosity, usually right before accidentally leaving a coin purse under a pillow. Some are regulars, dropping pearls of wisdom or actual pearls if they're well connected, before disappearing at sunrise with a vow of silence, and sometimes a suspicious rash. Others insist they're just here for the soup. No one believes them, but the parade of regret doesn't stop there. Every so often, a nobleman shows up in disguise, convinced no one will recognize him beneath his very common hat, which is actually a velvet cap with a feather so massive it blocks the candlelight. He'll try paying with promises, poetry, or an invitation to a feast that almost certainly doesn't exist. When pressed, He swears he's just a humble shepherd looking for lost sheep. Everyone humors him, mostly for entertainment. Then there are the perpetually broke locals, familiar faces with fresh excuses. One had his purse stolen, another is mourning a beloved pig. Someone else swears the moon is in retrograde and it's bad luck to pay on a Tuesday. The madam keeps a special list for these freeloaders. Most end up doing chores, scrubbing floors, or tending the goat until their debts are paid, which, in medieval math, means never. Finally, the odd stragglers, tourists, lost students, runaway apprentices, wandering minstrels, big dreams, empty purses, and usually running from something. A failed romance, a bad grade in Latin, or just the constable. They bring songs, stories, and unfortunately, fresh lice. Every visitor leaves their mark. A rumor, a stain, or a new entry in the endless saga of what happened last night. Boundaries, forget it. A handshake might turn into a hug. A wrong bed might suddenly be destiny. By morning, the parade of regret shuffles back into the world, carrying their secrets, their questionable coins, and the faint scent of tallow candles. And there you have it, the medieval brothel in all its messy, chaotic, and surprisingly organized glory. A place where soap is treasure, socks are sacred, and the rooster somehow outranks half the customers. It wasn't silk sheets and candlelit romance. It was survival. A patchwork of rules, rumors, and really questionable stew. Yet somehow, night after night, it kept going. Thanks to the madam, the workers, and a clientele that could fill an entire book of cautionary tales. So the next time you complain about slow Wi-Fi, burnt coffee, or laundry day, just remember, you could have been haggling with a muddy soldier, dodging a noble in disguise, or fighting over half a bar of mystery soap. History's worst Airbnb, maybe. But without places like this, we wouldn't have the wild, gritty, and very human stories that still make us laugh and cringe centuries later. Thanks for sticking around. If you enjoyed this dive into the past, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more tales that prove history wasn't just dates and kings. It was dirty socks, drunk merchants, and one very overworked rooster. See you in the next one.